Hello, this is Dana Arcuri, author, speaker, survivor, and advocate from danaarcuri.com. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you are new to my channel, please click the like and subscribe button. And if you're after a wide variety of wonderful, credible content, you could check that out. I have a long list of videos that are in categories right here on my YouTube channel, so you can head on over and check them out. In the meanwhile, today, I am going to talk about the 7 signs that you are in survival mode and how to go from barely surviving to fully thriving. And so collectively, I believe that our entire planet is burning 2 candles on one end. We're feeling depleted. We're feeling exhausted. A lot of us in the past few years have been feeling as if we are in survival mode. You know, there's so many different restrictions going on, the whole social distancing. Our lives have been turned upside down. And so people are feeling exhausted, and some people are just barely holding on to a thread of hope. So if that is you today, understand you are not alone. Many other people are going through various forms of survival mode, anxiety, and stress. And today I'm going to share the 7 signs of survival mode and then give you tips that can help you cope to fully thrive, to live a higher quality of life, and to find peace of mind. So let's start with, what is survival mode? So according to dictionary.com, they say survival mode is the act of surviving under adverse and unusual circumstances. Simply stated, survival mode is when you may feel overwhelmed by difficult situations where you may have no control. So during survival mode, it can seem as if your life did turn upside down. You may feel helpless. You may feel powerless. It may be overwhelming. So survival mode can be something that impacts our lives physically, mentally, and emotionally. It can impact our physical, mental, and cognitive health. It can influence our relationships, our finances, our health, our work, and our daily lives. So survival mode can be triggered by various things, such as everything going on right now. And I don't even have to spell this out because all of you know what I'm talking about. But it can also be something very much related to past trauma, to a loss, to a death, to grief, or to any form of significant life-altering changes that may have been devastating or tragic to you. So for an example, you may have been laid off of work. So maybe last year you were laid off, and then maybe you found out that you were not eligible for unemployment. Oh, yikes, that is painful. That is a big struggle, people. And so then that could lead to becoming financially broke. And then it can lead to basically not getting by financially because you're just not earning viable income. So it's extremely stressful when our finances are impacted, but it's also something that we can know that this isn't just financial. This isn't just to do with a job. I mean, this really does impact every facet of our life. So we can understand that when it comes to being in survival mode, there's different coping mechanisms. So we have maladaptive coping mechanisms. They are not helpful. So maladaptive means you may be doing something and it can actually be hurting you. So if you are an adult and one of your maladaptive coping mechanisms is to disassociate, this means you disconnect from yourself physically, mentally, and you're just like totally out there. And what can happen is that you could end up being in a vicious cycle of disassociating, feeling so disconnected with reality that you're having a hard time day to day to function. Now, an adaptive coping mechanism is something healthy. So for an example, self-care is an adaptive coping mechanism. Say someone uses swimming as a form of therapy. So it could actually be something that could be calming. It could be soothing. Physically, it could actually reduce your pain. So water is very cleansing and healing. Add in some Epsom salts if you're in a bath or something like that. And, you can really help detox your body. It's super beneficial. It's healthy. So we'll talk a little bit more about some adaptive coping mechanisms near the end. Right now, let's move on to the 7 signs that you are in survival mode. So number 1, you may feel hypervigilant. You may have anxiety with heightened emotional dysregulation. This means that you might have afternoon meltdowns. You might find yourself 1 minute you're happy, the next minute you're screaming, and the next minute you're crying your eyes out. So your emotions could be like this, a roller coaster, up and down, up and down, up and down. So dysregulation could be turning your life into hell, and it does not feel comfortable. And yet, I need to say this, it is a normal and common response after abuse and trauma. So please understand that, nothing's wrong with you. If you're feeling hypervigilant, if you are disassociating, do not beat yourself up about it. Instead, build awareness about it and learn some positive adaptive coping techniques that can help you get yourself out of being stuck in survival mode. Next is number 2. You may struggle with brain fog, memory loss, disorganization. You may be losing things such as your car keys or important documents. Number 3 is you may feel physically and emotionally drained. This could lead to chronic fatigue, high cortisol levels, and or adrenal and hormonal. Let's rephrase that. This could lead to chronic fatigue, high cortisol levels, and adrenal deficiencies, as well as any kind of hormonal imbalance. So understand that, it's kind of like when something goes wrong with a car and then it ends up there's something else that goes wrong with the car. And before you know it, you have to take your car in for a tune-up. Sometimes we need a tune-up too. Next is number 4. So you may battle with insomnia and being unable to get either a sound sleep, or once you do go to sleep, you might wake up and then you can't go back to sleep. So that's a real problem. This becomes a vicious cycle where it could leave you more exhausted, more burnout, and more overwhelmed. No fun. On another day, I might talk about sleep aids that are positive that could help you. But we're going to move on to number 5. You might find yourself during this whole survival mode that you're just rushing from like one thing to the next thing to the next thing. You feel as if you're spinning your wheels and that you're really not even accomplishing anything. So there are times when survival mode can feel like you're a hamster on that hamster wheel that's going around and around and around, and you just need to jump off and you need to get grounded, and there needs to be some positive improvements that can take place to help you go from barely surviving to fully thriving. Number 6 is during this timeline of everything going on in the world over the past few years, being in survival mode, anything else that you may be dealing with. So it might be for you a relationship that went bad. Your health went downhill. It could be that you have PTSD, complex PTSD, depression, some kind of mental health condition. You might feel isolated. You might feel alone. You might feel helpless and powerless. And, this is difficult. The one thing that I learned in my certified trauma recovery coaching program, so I'm in school right now, love it. And the one thing we learned that is so powerful is that most people who are abused, so whether it's like narcissistic abuse, parental abuse, sibling abuse, or any other form of abuse, it could be domestic violence. Anyways, any form of abuse that happens relationally, it requires you to heal and recover relationally. Okay, so I'm going to kind of break that down. What does that mean? That means that if you were in a relationship and there was some form of abuse, trauma, what can happen is because that was a relationship that went bad, that went sour, that went south, the way to recover is you need at least one safe, trauma-informed person who's compassionate, empathic, loving, educated, and who's a good listener, who's going to give you sacred space, non-judgmentally, so you could talk, so you could work things out, so you can express yourself in a very authentic, vulnerable way. And so someone can then really help build your trust in at least one person. So there is a breakdown in trust with relationships that go south, that are toxic. And so we can understand that the one way to improve your life is to find at least one person who gives you emotional support. So whether that is a certified trauma recovery coach, whether that is a licensed therapist, a psychologist, or whether that is clergy or a best friend or just a loving mentor or someone who is an advocate who could be there for you, I highly recommend that you find at least one emotional supportive person for you. Next is that we have to understand, and this is number 7, that with survival mode, you may have lost all joy, motivation, hope, and purpose in your life. You know, when you're struggling and you just can't stay afloat and you feel like every day is a big bad fight, every day you're like, I am just wrestling to stay ahead. And there's so much demanding for my attention and I just can't do it all. You're not Superman and you're not Superwoman and you don't need to be. So we have to know that getting through each day could be a struggle and it can feel like a chore if you are in survival mode, which is another great reason to have at least one supportive person in your life. Now we're going to talk about how to go from barely surviving to thriving. Number 1, build awareness. Awareness is everything. When we're unaware, we can't help ourselves. If you want to help yourself, it starts with you. A lot of times people seek answers outside of themselves when answers are actually inside of ourselves. Pay attention. So the first key to beating the survival mode is to acknowledge that you are in it and then build awareness about it, educate yourself about it, be mindful, and be present in your current reality. Number 2, we're going to talk about the airplane analogy. So this really does go hand in hand with the whole thing on survival mode. So envision that you and your child are on an airplane traveling somewhere, and all of a sudden the flight attendant announces that the plane is going down. Buckle up and grab your oxygen. Yo, that's a bit scary. So if your plane is going down, the right response is, hey, who am I going to give the oxygen to first? Do I give it to my child? I love my child. Or do I give it to myself? And some people can feel really perplexed with that. But the answer is, and the right response, is that you give yourself the oxygen first. You don't want to pass out. Your child needs you. So for you to help your child and to help yourself, first, put the oxygen mask on you. And then after that, you can take care of you. And then you can take care of your child. So we have to understand that practicing breathing techniques to get grounded can also help us reduce our stress levels. So find different ways to practice some really excellent breathing techniques. There's a lot of different ways. Go on to Google and check it out. Number 3, we're going to talk about sleep because sleep impacts everything to do with our lives, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So getting proper rest and having sound sleep is vital for us to function. And we have to know that it's important to create a realistic nighttime routine that is consistent. So for an example, you can go to bed at the same time every night. You can possibly use white noise, melatonin, L-theanine, which is an amino acid. It really helps to reduce anxiety. It helps to reduce stress and depression. It can help you sleep. I love L-theanine. I call it my chill pill. Love it, love it, love it. And I've had no negative side effects from it. We can understand also that essential oils such as like lavender, frankincense, and bergamot, chamomile could be all helpful to promote sound sleep, relaxation, and calm. Next, we're going to talk about self-care because let's face it, if we want to beat survival mode, if we want to conquer this, we need to take care of ourselves. So self-care is like, boom, number one, top priority. So the best person who can best take care of you is you. You can do it. You know, so many people, they're just like, I don't want to, and I'm too busy, and I have too much going on. Well, guess what? Guess what? If you don't practice self-care, if you don't take time to replenish, refuel, you might be burning the candle on two ends of the stick and you are not going to be okay. So if you want to be better, if you want to go into thriving mode and be happy and healthy and just energized, then it really helps to start with self-care. So do what you love, do what makes you happy. Everybody has different ideas for self-care. So some people like to go for a nature walk. Some people like to listen to their favorite music. You can buy yourself, maybe go out there, buy yourself something, treat yourself to something, whether it's something real tiny or something that you want, something that cheers you up. And one idea is a bouquet of flowers. This works for me. I love yellow flowers. So yellow is such a cheerful color. It's a pick-me-up, and flowers are so cheerful too. So there are times when I will buy myself flowers. And, you know, some men have this weird idea that if a woman buys herself flowers, it means that whoever's in her life, whatever intimate partner's in her life, it means that like they're not meeting their needs. I'm giving a shout out. No. You guys missed it. You missed the point. The point is self-care is so important. And so for me, if I feel like flowers are a pick-me-up and these yellow flowers are so happy and so cheerful and I'm just like so joyful, then this is what I like. This is what I like. It has nothing to do with my husband. Absolutely nothing to do with my relationship or my marriage. It's something that makes me happy, and my husband's okay with that. You know, there are times he'll gift me with flowers, which he did recently for Mother's Day, but there are times I buy myself flowers, and it does not mean something's wrong with my love life. It means that I love myself. I take care of myself. I nurture myself and my inner child, and I'm playful and I'm happy and I might go dancing and I might do something silly and funny. But this is the way I take care of me. But think about it. What do you like for self-care? So for some people, you know, they might like to get their body moving. Some people like to exercise. Some people feel good when they sweat. Now, I'm going to be honest, I'm not into like perspiration, like, whoa, that can really mess up my makeup and hair. Makes for a bad hair day, people. Come on. I know. I'm keeping it real. You know, this whole thing with my beauty background, I've never liked to sweat, but I know that it's good for us. Actually, it is. So a lot of times when we perspire, we're detoxing, and that is actually really good for us. So I do have days where I will work out. Say I get on my treadmill. Say I go biking. Say I go nature walking, and I'm walking fast and I'm like breathing heavy and then I'm sweating. That's okay. That's okay. Because guess what? It boom, boosts those feel good endorphins, and now I'm on top of the world. Oh my goodness, it feels so good. And so we do like to get our bodies moving, whether you go dancing. Hey, you could go dancing right in your own home. People just turn on your music and let loose. It's fun times. Number 5 is set clear boundaries. I can't speak about this enough. I mean, I could go on and on and on about this one. It is so important for all relationships. So whether it's a friendship, whether it's a marriage, whether it's an intimate relationship, whether it's your workplace relationships, whether it's your family relationships, whether it's social media relationships. I mean, come on now. All relationships are so important. And that's why having a set of healthy boundaries is essential. So our personal and professional boundaries are like an invisible fence. So we can't see them, but they're there. And it is meant to protect you. It's meant to keep you safe and keep the violators out. Woo, woo. All power to you people who are wise souls and who do have a hedge of protection with clear boundaries in your life. I give you 2 thumbs up for that. So number 6 is soul care. So now we're going to take a deep dive into spirituality. So I really believe that when it comes to healing, it's not just on a physical level. It's not just about mental health. So I really feel strong that spirituality is another form of recovery. And I feel that it's so empowering. And out of every single way I could heal, I really believe spiritually, there are some serious breakthroughs I've had over the past 6 months. I mean, I am talking serious breakthroughs. And I'm so, so glad that I take time to focus on my soul and my spirituality. You know, the higher power, God, everyone's different, so for you, it might be Jesus. For someone else, it might be the universe. For someone else, it might be a totally different form of higher power. Let's not judge. This is a sacred space. We're not going to judge anyone for their belief systems. Instead, we're going to give them compassion and let them believe whatever they believe and not judge. And what we can do is just talk about spirituality. So soul care could be something in regards to like finding solitude. It could be people may enjoy prayer, meditation, spending time in mindfulness, various forms of energetic healing, getting grounded, getting centered. For everyone, it's different. There are some people who really do believe in yoga. I mean, they're really into it. So I say, hey, if it works for you, go for it. Other people, they're into other forms of spirituality. For them, it might mean listening to worship music. If that is something that does soothe you, that does emotionally support you, go for it. Go for it. We can understand that even other ways of practicing soul care can include things such as drawing, painting, gardening, writing, baking, creating music, playing an instrument. Or it can even be creating a safe space in your home, like this little cozy atmosphere with like with your soft plush pillows, with your blankets that are warm and cozy, and you're surrounded by these flickering candles, and maybe you're diffusing essential oils. You have this little sacred space and it's yours, and you're alone, and you might have just these dim candles just flickering in the darkness, and maybe you turn on some music. It could just be even acoustic sounds, the piano, the pitter-pattering of raindrops, the ocean, just, the seagulls and the ocean waves. I love that. I love listening to all of those different various sounds. They're very calming and relaxing, and it can really help you get grounded. So when it comes to soul care, do what works for you. Next is the last one. Number 7 is top priority. So I am a big believer on always finding at least one realistic, practical tool that can equip you to go from barely surviving to fully thriving. So decide in chronological order what your top priorities are. You might need to write this down on paper and then focus on this list to see what matters most to you. When we actually write down, like, okay, these are my top priorities, and maybe I write down a list of 7. I'm going to start with my 7 most important. So for me, my health is number 1. Everything about my health, physically, emotionally, spiritually, my health comes first. Always will, always will. This is just where I'm at, and this is what I've been experiencing for the past 11 years. So my health is number 1. Number 2 for me is I'm in school right now for certified trauma recovery. this is big for me. This is such a huge, huge, powerful, positive change in my life. But it does take up so much of my time. I'm having a harder time now catching up with people's comments on my blog and on YouTube. And the reason why is because my homework, my schoolwork, all of my assignments, everything that I have to do to stay on top of my schoolwork and to keep going and to complete each task requires so much of me. And so I wanted to just kind of give a little FYI to anyone who's sending me messages on my website. Please understand, I'm not ignoring you. I'm just swamped. So I am swamped right now with school. And the only way for me to succeed and to complete this program is for me to hyper focus on it. For me, balance has always been a challenge. How do you balance all of these things? That is rough. If you can find balance, find balance. For me, balance is always a challenge for me. And so I have to, again, go back to top priorities. What's my top priority? Well, my health is first. Next is everything to do with school. So this means that there are things that will fall to the wayside. And it's not that we're trying to be rude or disrespectful to someone. It's not that we're trying to minimize a question that someone may have for us or that they're reaching out to us. It's just that I have, and you may also have, a full plate. And so there are times we cannot do it all. We cannot be it all. We cannot be everything to everyone, especially to people we don't even know. And so please understand that I'm in a place right now where I need to focus on school. I need to focus on school. I'm going to say it again. I need to focus on finishing school. And guess what? The day will come. It's just around the bend. Yay, 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 yay. This is great news. Okay, so I will be graduating in the summer. And once I get past the whole school, all these demands, all this homework, all these essays, all this certification requirements, then things are going to lighten up and I will start providing coaching. So it will be certified trauma recovery coaching. I'm going to bring on board some new things, but I'm not even going to talk about that today, but I'm just going to give a little teeny tiny hint. It's something that can help you spiritually, physically, and emotionally to heal in addition to trauma recovery coaching. All right. So understand that everyone is different. So as far as, how do we cope? And, do you have maladaptive coping mechanisms? Do you have adaptive coping mechanisms? Of course, try to do what's healthy, try to do what works. And the one thing I want to ask is, are you currently in survival mode? If so, how are you coping? What does coping look like for you? We have to understand doing drugs and drinking and being in reckless behaviors is a maladaptive coping mechanism. Whereas self-care, soul care, anything to do with like eating right, sleeping right, exercising, whether we go to therapy, whether we have someone else who's an emotional support person, such as a certified trauma recovery coach, those are very, very adaptive, helpful, healthy coping mechanisms. And so consider what will work for you, what is doable for you. May you step back into the driver's seat of your life because you want to be the CEO, body, mind, and soul. We don't want to just merely surviving and feel like we're drowning. We do want to be thriving. And so we have to take time to take care of ourselves. Intuitively, focus on your gut instincts. Whatever your gut's telling you, trust it. The gut doesn't lie. Intuition doesn't lie. And understand lastly that you do deserve joy, peace, love, respect, health, happiness, and positive, loving relationships. So you are deserving to heal. You are deserving to fully thrive. And I want you to know that today. So feel free to like my video, subscribe to my channel, and you can visit me at danaarcuri.com. Thank you so much and have a beautiful day. Take care of yourselves, people. Love you.